This particular poet, Iqbal, in a very, very wise and very intellectual way, pointed out the deficiencies and the problems that Muslim community had. And his purpose basically was to identify where we are making mistakes and then provide in the second poem the solutions for those problems and guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that Muslim community, the Muslim Ummah is aware of where they stand and what they should do to get blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me briefly tell you a background. None of the poets in the past had ever dared to do such a thing, number one. And even the prophets before our beloved prophet never really had any way of addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala where it would appear as if you are making a complaint to him and you're not happy with how he is managing your affairs. The only example that I find is one in Bible that Prophet Jeremiah evidently at one point did say that, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how come that you are ignoring this thing, you are looking the other way when all these people that do not believe in you, they are getting all the good things in life, and we that believers are being ignored by you, or being left on the side, or you are not listening to my supplications, and you seem to be kind to people that don't believe in you. That's the only example I can find. And this little verse in Quran that I found, which really is not comparable to it, where Yaqub alayhi salam, when his son Yusuf was separated from him, and there in one verse he says, he uses the word ashku, kala innama ashku bassi wa huzni ilallahi, which translated in most tafasir means that Yaqub alayhi salam said that I complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of my grief and my concerns, but I know from him things that you don't know. So basically he was just saying that he's communicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he did use the word shikwa. But other than that, you can't find anything in the literature, anybody else doing it what Iqbal did. Now, when he actually wrote this particular shikwa, he was criticized by theologians, people that deal with religious teachings, and they felt that this was not a good thing to do by him. However, like I said before, when he wrote Jawab-e-Shikwa, when he actually wrote the second poem in response to the first one, they all realized that his purpose was to make sure that he points out the flaws that we have in our characters and the things that we should remedy. And then in there, from as if he was speaking on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gave beautiful responses, and then he gave us the recipe to be good. So let me just translate it simply for the little time that we have, and then more or less leave the rest of the stuff for us to read alone, or maybe in future sessions. He says, "Kyun ziaں kar banوں?" Why should I be being a person that takes a loss all the time? Sood فراموش رہوں, and I should ignore taking interest or actually thinking of my own interest. Why shouldn't I be more or less concerned about my well-being and do the business with loss, being a Muslim, because I'm not supposed to take interest, and everybody else that is not believer can do so without any concerns. Remember, this was done before the First World War, when Ottoman Empire was being attacked and subsequently got disintegrated. But this was on the horizon, and he could see how Muslims were being subjugated and defeated everywhere. and they were losing their power. So at that time he felt that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has somehow or the other forsaken them, and that's the words that he used. He says, کیوں زیاں کار بنوں سود فراموش رہوں. Why should I work at a loss and not take the interest? فکر فردا نہ کروں. I shouldn't worry about my tomorrow, my future. میں بے غم دوش رہوں, and I keep lost, keep busy in worrying about my past. Dosh is past, farda is tomorrow. Dosh is the time that has gone by, and farda is the future, like future time. Fikre farda na karun. I shouldn't worry about my future. Main begam dosh rahun, and continue to be worried about my past and just repent on it. Nale bulbul ke sunu. I should hear the cries of the nightingale or other people. In other words, he compared this world to a garden, human beings as bulbul or nightingale or birds, and hamatan gosh rahum. Hamatan means the entire body. Hama means all. Tan means body. Gosh means ear. So he says, why should I listen to crying of the people, people complaining and people suffering, and then only listen to it and do nothing about it? Hum nawam mein bhi koi gul hu. He says, am I some kind of a flower or an inanimate thing that has no ability to respond? Ki khamosh rahu, that I should stay quiet? He says, I'm not like him. If a nightingale is crying, she's in trouble, and I am a flower and I can't do anything about it, I can only listen to her cries. Why should I be that way? Now, Iqbal was a barrister, learned man, educated man, and a beautiful poet, philosopher. He had studied philosophy in England and Germany, and he comes back and he had the ability from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be very vocal and very profound in his statements. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that he is Rahman ar-Rahman. And then he says, خَلَقَ-الْإِنسَانَ عَلَّمَهُ الْبَيَانَ. I created human being and taught them how to express themselves or how to talk. Bayan is something that we have that no other creation has. We have the ability to express ourselves and talk as human beings. No other creature has it. Bayan is much more than being able to talk. It's actually thinking, putting words together, speaking when you must, not saying anything when you don't have to, and being able to express yourself in a way that it really gets to the hearts of the people. Iqbal had that faculty to its extreme, and he presented everything beautifully. He says, Jurrata moz meri tabe sukhan hai mujhko. I am being encouraged by my ability to speak. Aur shikwa Allah se khakam badahan hai mujhko. I have a complaint against to make to God, and he says khakam badahan. Khakam badahan means dust be in my mouth. I like saying that I am afraid to say that, and I hate to say this, but I have to say it. The same way he says, the shikwa Allah se khakam badahan hai mujhko. And then that's how he starts his poem, and he then starts to give his complaints to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has this 6 lines is one band. There are lots of verses in this particular poem, and in Jawab-e-Shikwa also, which are really worth reading. If one was to read it, understand it, and try to internalize it, then one would really know how to live a beautiful life as we are supposed to live by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wish and commands. So, like I said, to summarize it, this is only one example in the entire literature that one can find where a human being has a detailed complaint against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.